Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and welcome to the show dedicated to the unusual, interesting, bizarre, underappreciated, wonderful conservation stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. On this series of the show, we are, of course, celebrating Madagascar, the land of the lemurs. Now, on last week's show, we looked at Madagascar through the lens of health and wildlife hunting, and that was really interesting. With Hervé Randriamadi, we talked about his work with Maheri, we talked about coral reefs, we talked about mental health, and yes, all sorts of interesting dynamics going on there. But this week, we're changing lanes, staying in Madagascar, of course, but we're changing lanes to talk about botany and plants. We're going to be looking at one of the most iconic plant species in the world, the baobab. Now, for those of you who do not know what a baobab is, you will know what a baobab is. Google it and have a look and at a picture. They are the upside down tree. They are the iconic image of kind of Africa. They are just this big, yes, iconic kind of plant that looks incredibly bizarre, but is also, yeah, very interesting. And I've loved them since I was very young, so I was very excited to have this conversation. So I really hope you all can kind of gain an appreciation, and also, if you didn't know what they were, learn a little bit about them. And yeah, anyway, before I ramble, yeah, I'm just very, very excited for this one, if you can't tell already. so, yes, so we are joined by Seheno Andriantsaralaza, who's going to tell us all about that. She is the Madagascar manager for the Lemur Conservation Network. She's the Within Madagascar director of Lemur Love. And yeah, she's just a generally fantastic person to talk to about this sort of stuff. So I really hope you all enjoy listening to her discuss her work with the baobab. We also are going to talk about something else which is very, very interesting, and something that I think she makes lots and lots of excellent points about, which is bringing Malagasy people into the conservation discussion, not just in the practical sense of equipping them to kind of look after forests in a very practical way, but also in a sense of the academic side. So helping kind of, yeah, include Malagasy people in the research that is done about their country, and not just kind of include them, put them at the forefront. So it's a really interesting discussion about that as well. Now, I really hope you enjoy listening to the show today. I think that's all I want to say just now, because I don't want to give too much away, because it's a fantastic interview, and it's I think the one thing that I would leave with, I suppose, is a lot of the time on this show, and on a lot of shows, they focus on animals, and we focus on animals, and we focus on people, but plants are often forgotten. And I think this is an interesting discussion to be had, because not only do I work at a botanic garden, so I find it kind of interesting, I also think it's an important discussion to be had, because as we'll see throughout the discussion, animals rely on plants, we rely on plants, plants rely on animals, and there's just this perfect circle that only really works when everyone is discussed and everything is discovered and everything is kind of, yeah, considered equally. And so discussing the baobab in this way and how it interlinks with all sorts of other things that we've talked about, all sorts of other species, it's just, yeah, it's a really important thing to consider. So I hope that's something you take away from it, is that plants are just as equal as animals. And yeah, if you do like that, please let me know, because I'll try and get more interviews about plants rather than just focusing always on animals and humans all the time. So yeah, anyway, thank you so much for listening to me babble for a moment. I really hope you enjoyed today's interview with Seheno Andriantsaralaza. And before I go, I once again need to thank you so, so much for joining me as we explore the land of the lemurs. Thank you. Welcome back to the show. I am now joined by Seheno Andriantsaralaza, the Madagascar manager of the Lemur Conservation Network, the Within Madagascar director of Lemur Love, and a researcher who is currently working on the baobab. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome. I'm very happy to be here today to join you and to have this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I wondered, first of all, if you could kind of introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about how you first became interested in lemur conservation.
Yeah, thank you. I have a little different background. I'm a conservationist and ecologist also. I have a PhD on plant ecology, so I've mainly worked on plants, on Malagasy
Mhm.
plants. After my PhD, I've worked at the NGO in the south of Madagascar, and I was the technique and scientific coordinator of one of the care facility and of lemurs. And I've become very interested on lemur conservation since my work in that NGO. So I was responsible of taking care of such illegal pet lemurs. And since that day, I'm very interested on how to protect lemurs as one of the biodiversity richness of Madagascar. And I've realized how much is difficult to work on conservation in Madagascar. So it's really challenging, but I really love overcome some challenging challenges and yeah, and became working on lemur conservation since my work with that NGO. And then I've met our director at Lemur Conservation Network. And for first time, I was volunteering for the Lemur Conservation Network, and then I'm the Madagascar manager. So Lemur Conservation Network is really a platform that gathers 60 organizations that are working on lemur conservation. And as we always say at the lemur conservation, we want to have together everyone to save lemur from extinction. So I'm really convinced that if we work all together, if everyone helps each other to save lemurs, we can have a hope to save lemurs. So that's my little background on yeah, my work on lemur conservation.
Perfect. It's a really interesting kind of contrast of different things with the plants and then moving into lemur conservation as well. And you kind of touched on and gave hints at a couple topics we'll discuss throughout the interview as well, because we'll come back to kind of the idea of everyone working together as well. Um, but to start off, I wanted to start back with one of the first things you mentioned there, which is really interesting to me, is your work with the baobab and plants. And I think the first question I would have for you is kind of it's this kind of work that you're doing is a good example of what can happen when an important member of an ecosystem, like a lemur, a giant lemur, disappears. And I wondered if you could tell the listeners a little bit more about that and your work surrounding seed dispersal and the baobab.
Yes, absolutely. So this research on seed dispersal around baobab is really a mystery that we don't have any answers right now. So during my PhD, my first research questions is which animal can disperse the seeds of baobabs because plants need to have dispersal agents, like winds, like animals, to constitute their next generation. So when I first started working on baobabs, the first question is which animal can disperse the seeds of baobabs? And we realized that the fruits are too large, and there is no current animals that can disperse a seed baobab fruits and seeds nowadays. So when I started to work on baobab seed dispersal, I've realized that there are many other plants in the world that don't have any animal seed dispersal dispersers right now. And so one of the hypotheses that came out on this mechanism of seed dispersal, that maybe the baobabs is among of the giant long-lived tree that have a coevolution with the giant large-bodied animals that are extinct now. So that was a really, when I first realized that the response, I was really confused, because there are no large-bodied animals in Madagascar right now. So one of the hypotheses is that maybe giant lemurs are extinct. There are no giant lemurs right now in Madagascar. Elephant birds, giant tortoises, they maybe contribute to disperse the baobab seeds. And I've done some experimentation with captive giant tortoises, and we realized that when giant tortoises eat the baobabs, the baobab seeds even can be dispersed by giant tortoises, because they eat, and the seeds are in their stomach, in the digestive tract, during 15 days. And after that, seeds germinate really quickly. So that was the one demonstration that proves that maybe giant tortoises, like maybe 500 years ago, they can contribute to the seed dispersal. But no, what happens to the baobabs? We really don't have the response of this question. And that's a mystery. Right now, we don't have any responses. We know that maybe lemurs can contribute to the secondary seed dispersal, not the primary, but the secondary seed dispersal, because lemurs cannot broken. They cannot break the fruits, because
Mm-hmm.
it's too hard, it's too large for them. So we think that maybe lemurs disperse at the second time the baobab seeds. Maybe the giant rats in the western of Madagascar, and maybe baobabs found any alternative mechanism of dispersal, like dispersal by water. So this is a mystery, because such of orphan plants that don't have any animal seed dispersers, and we really don't know how they can survive without their major animal seed dispersers. So after my PhD, I become more interested on those orphaned plants. We really called these plants as orphaned plants, because if they don't have their partner, they cannot constitute the next generation. So we are really worried about such plants, because we have the urgent concern about the conservation crisis. For baobab, for example, their habitats are really endangered. We encounter now the habitat loss, the degradation, deforestation. So if we don't know how happens to the baobabs, how can they constitute the next generation, and we are facing on habitat loss, it's really problematic. So after my PhD, I've decided to work both on lemur conservation, but also resolve this mystery around baobab seed dispersal.
Mm-hmm. It's a really
Yes.
interesting, really interesting
Mhm.
story actually, because it's yes, it's one of those tricky issues in conservation where, because the
Yes.
animals are now gone, what do you then
Mhm.
start to do to fix it? And what how can you try and help this species kind of thrive now? I wondered what you'd been doing, is there a way to kind of maybe seeds and grow them in a nursery and then replant them? What or what? How have you been looking at this kind of issue and trying to keep the species alive just now?
Mhm. Yes, that's a great and really interesting question because yeah, that's true. How can we replace such of the functional role as animal do for baobabs? Yeah,
Hmm.
so one way that we do right now with my I have one grants from the USAID program. We want to investigate what happens for the baobabs in natural environment, but right now we have to do what to replace the because we if there are no animals or any animal in forest, we have to grow up the baobabs, as you said, in nurseries. That's the one way to do that. The second way to do that is we if you want to replace and if you want to restore the baobab forest, we have also to involve the people near who lives nearby the forests, because we want to protect the remaining forest of baobabs. To protect the forest, we have to involve the local communities who are nearby the baobabs. We have to explain and to understand also their needs. Because when we say right now that there is a degradation of baobab habitats, it's because we have local communities nearby the forest who struggling every day to feed their family. So they if there is degradation of baobab forest because of agriculture. That's true. That's a reality. So we decided to um, protect the baobab forest to replace the plants. So to replace the role of animals to grow up baobab in nurseries, and we don't do that alone. We involve local people to do that. So that's the second way, and it's really important to involve local people. The third way is when we want to replace the role to do the role of a seed dispersal, we have also to think about how can we integrate and restore the plant animal interactions. So we want also to restore the interaction between plants and animals. So we have to discover which animals can interact with baobab fruits, but also with other plants. We have, for example, lemurs that made if they don't if lemurs are not the primary animal seed dispersers of baobabs, they are certainly the seed dispersers of other plants in the natural habitats of baobabs. So we have also to restore this role of lemurs with as a seed dispersers. For example, birds are also seed dispersers of many endemic plants in Madagascar. So we have to restore and to think about how can we restore plant animal interaction, which are really important. So not just planting plants, but also restore this interaction in a natural habitats.
Mm. That's
Yes.
really really interesting. And again, it's you touched on so many things that I wish we had hours and hours for this conversation, because there is so many little elements there that I'd love to get into. But the one that really stuck out to me, I guess, is working with the local communities and trying to get them involved in the conservation of these things. Because I read previously, when I was doing my research for the interview today, I read that you're looking into kind of how to balance the conservation of the baobab against the local use, and then also the international trade and the economic benefits to local people. And it's really interesting to me. I wondered how you kind of approached that and how you what if how that's been in terms of trying to not say to people, oh, you can't use these because they're also economically benefit. It must be such a difficult thing to try and work out. And I wondered how your work on that particular aspect was going.
Yes, yes, you're right. It's really difficult, but I have a little story before really talking about that.
Okay.
I'm really passionate about research and the concept. How to say that the research itself.
Mhm.
When you discover, when I discovered this mystery around the seed dispersal, I'm really passionate about that. The thing is, when we live in such a country of like Madagascar, when we always talk about the biodiversity, like we say, Madagascar is one of the country that has 80% of plants and animals that are endemic in Madagascar. And in another head, we really we always listen that, and this is true, the Madagascar is one of the poorest country in the world. You as a Malagasy researcher, I was really I have many questions in my mind to say how can we just to discover the mystery of seed dispersal of baobabs, and how can we protect baobabs, how can we help the other citizens of the Malagasy. So I'm sometimes I'm really frustrating because the research is not enough to discover the seed dispersal of Madagascar. Even we discover what happens to the baobabs. If we don't have solutions to protect these plants, it's not really enough. So I decided to try to understand what are the challenges if we cannot protect baobabs. What are the challenges? So I've decided to go in the western of Madagascar in Murundava, and when I'm working with some colleagues, and we say that baobabs are really can have benefits from local communities because fruits are sold at the local market, and we can have also the international trade of baobab fruits. And the first man, when you are conservationist, you say no, 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 no. You cannot touch the baobabs. We cannot sell the baobab fruits because they are in danger. And when you say that, you see the local people who are poor, who are very, very poor. You cannot say that anymore. So after that, I really changed my mind and my point of view, my thought, and I've said that from now, I don't want to be just a conservationist. From now, I need to be a conservationist, but also to contribute on the local economic development. So that's why I've started to work on a project that can combine local economic development and conservation. One day, I'm the one former said one local committee member said to me, Seheno, listen, your research is really interesting. Okay, we don't know which animal can disperse baobab seed. That's really interesting. But if we don't have a benefits from these baobabs, and if you cannot feed our family thanks to this baobab, we cannot help you to protect this tree. And when I've heard that sentences from this local community member, I was really interested, and I said, yes, you're right, you're right. We have to find what would be are your benefits to protect this baobab? What are your needs? What is your expectation? And from that day, I decided to if we do a research, we have to combine, and it's a really challenging. It's a really challenging. It's not the first time researchers do that. I know that it's really challenging, but we have to try. We have to start thinking about doing a research that can have an impact for local pupils. So right now we are starting to work on nurseries, and in parallel of that we work on the methods to put a camera trap in the lemur in the baobab forest to observe any animal that can interact with baobab fruits. And at the same time we work with local economic operator, like a company, a small company that who are interested to work with local communities on setting up a fair and equitable trade for with implementing the trade with baobab fruits. So we want to combine all of these aspects to reach the objectives or the aim of the project to conserve the baobab, which is really important, but also conserve this tree to the for the benefits of local communities. So it's really challenging, and I'm not saying that it's the first time for the no project research, but yeah, we realize that it's really important, and it must be the priority for any research on conservation in Madagascar.
Hmm. That's yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess that's the issue. I suppose is then yeah, how are people meant to want to protect something that they don't know about and they don't love and they don't necessarily have this exposure to? You have to kind of form this connection with them and put it back in their hands and
Yes.
say, this is what's going on around you. And yes, try and get them involved. And I suppose the benefit then in turn is that it provides jobs and all this kind of
Yes.
extra things for the local community as well. It's really interesting, and yes, very. It's one of those projects that I said this in one of the last interviews I recorded. It's really an inspirational thing, and if I could applaud without ruining the audio, I would, because it's a really interesting concept and it's something that's really admirable.
Mhm.
And I wondered, with that in mind, you talk a lot in your work about kind of the idea of decolonizing conservation, which I suppose I wondered if we could talk a little bit about that as well, because that's kind of in a similar vein of getting local people involved. You have to sometimes remove the external
Mhm.
influences who are telling them exactly what to do. So I wondered if we could talk a little bit about decolonizing conservation and if you could explain to the listeners maybe what that is.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the term itself, I think there are different and various definitions and explanations. But for me, decolonizing conservation means the first thing in my mind is the empowerment of local scientists on conservation, and also the conservationists. Why this term of empowerment is in my mind? Because as Malagasy conservationists, we always feel like that we are involved in conservation, but we really don't understand even why it's important and what the type of projects of research or conservation project we have to build or to set up in a specific area. We always for me I'm working on with many foreigners in conservation, and everything goes well, but we are involved assistant or as to facilitate the logistical things and aspects, but we are not involved in the project at the beginning. We have many research projects in Madagascar related to conservation activities, and I'm for me, I think that the empowerment and the involvement of local conservationists at the beginning of the project, it's really not enough. We always think that, and for us as Malagasy, we think that, oh no, there is a project that set up abroad outside of Madagascar, maybe in France, maybe in UK, maybe in US, and we say, oh okay, also how can you do that? Oh, you can do assistant researcher, we can do so. There are a lot of jobs that it's really great. It's really great. That I'm not saying that it's not great, but where is the involvement of Malagasy researcher conservationist when you set up this project? We don't feel that we have a voice to give our opinion or our advice to say, given the local context, in for example in western Madagascar, maybe we can include this kind of activities. We can involve these types of stakeholder, or there are many things that we want to provide as ideas or opinions, but for decades, we feel like that there is a project outside Madagascar, and the foreigners arise, and yes, they have the funds. That's really true. They have the grants, but we really want to be involved in at all of process for the projects, and we want to have your voice. We feel like that we don't have the voice, and also because uh, there is a system in Madagascar that some conservationists or some scientists are not involved enough, because the system is really bad in Madagascar. So we heard the voice of the stakeholder. So that's a shame also. But yeah, no, there is a tendency in the world that we heard the voice of young researchers, the early career researchers. We want to have them involved, and if we want to work in a specific area, maybe it's time to involve the local persons and the local researcher at the beginning to have an impact, a real impact in the at the end of the project. So empowerment, involvement in the whole process, not just because we have funds and we say, okay, are you interested to do the the research assistant because we have this research? Yeah, we are always interested because we want to have jobs. Okay, but we but where is our voice to be involved in such the setting up of this project? So when I say decolonizing conservation, I mean the empowerment, the local involvement, commitment of Malagasy researchers, and yeah, to reinforce also the collaboration. So I really don't mean that there is the collaboration. We don't need collaboration from foreigners. It's not that way. We need to think or rethink again about this collaboration and what does it mean really? What would be the long-term benefits from both sides?
That's
Mhm.
yeah, and I guess it links back to your previous answer in a way as well, because it's not just about you helping the researchers in a very kind of scientific. You also have the connections with communities, and you're able to then connect with
Yeah.
because you have the lived experience of being there and getting to know people, and you just will be able to kind of where someone who has never necessarily been to a lot of towns or cities in Madagascar, they won't know a lot of the background knowledge that you have, so it and have the links
Mm-hmm.
that you have, so it really benefits everybody by having you involved. I wondered, what is the ideal way then to bring all these ideas together? What would you say is the most beneficial way of having kind of people come in? What in an ideal world, in an ideal research, what would be the kind of best way to balance local conservation work and external factors as well?
Um, yeah, in the ideal world, yeah, that's yeah, I don't know if it can be it's my just a dream, but I've this idea to when we want to set up a proposal or a project, it may be worth to 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 go on the field before the the submitting the research grant or the conservation grants. I know it may be and it's maybe really challenging, and maybe that's not the way that we should do that, but um yeah, we the problem right now that why I have noticed is that even myself, we have our grants and we go on field and we say to the local communities, hey, we have a grant to conserve the baobab forest. Can we meet you during 1 hour, because for after that we have to put our camera sharp to observe animals, and so that's a really really frustrating to the local communities, because they would say, but we really don't know about the baobabs. We really don't know about your projects. Can you tell a little more about that? Maybe there are another priorities in our context in our forests. Did you think about that? So the I for me the ideal world, and even for myself, I'm telling that for myself too, is let's try to understand first the expectation and the needs on the local context before trying to get money to get a project inside, because like in Madagascar is really a huge country, and there are different problematics and challenges for each area, and there are different contexts, and if we want to set up a project like in the south of Madagascar, it's different from the north of Madagascar. So it's really challenging to set up a project and to not involve the local stakeholder at the beginning. So maybe it's time to change the way we want to set up our project, and let's maybe listen first and try to understand the local context before setting up a project, and to say, okay, that would be our budget, our objectives, because we don't we have different perceptions, when even from the urban area and to rural area, we have different perceptions. And those who are from the urban areas, they want to have a project that are based in local area, but we don't know what happens, what are the expectations in those area. It's like for me, it's not really a good way to do that. So yeah, let's try to understand and to listen first, and then we can work.
Yes, yeah. It's
Yeah.
a really interesting, yeah. I think it's the best way to, and it's something that everyone I've spoken to on the show, it seems to be a dream and a kind of goal that everyone's pushing towards, is this idea of actually involving involving the people who are in the
Mm-hmm.
places where the conservation, like I was talking to the some representatives of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, and they were talking about how
Mm-hmm.
yes, we all love giraffes and we all want to protect giraffes, and it'll be the same with lemurs and things. We all want to
Mm-hmm.
do these good work, but at the end of the day, giraffe are it's an African problem for people in African countries
Yes.
to solve. It's and I
Mm-hmm.
imagine it's a similar thing that at the end of the day, these are things that are going on in Madagascar, and so you have to have the people who are living there and experiencing it every day help fix
Yes.
these issues. Um, I wondered.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We're getting towards the end of the interview. I've just got a few more questions left, but one that's really, I guess, important and one that I'm looking forward to asking actually and hearing about would be, what are some of the successes of local led conservation initiatives that you've experienced so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so far, yeah, there are many successes in local-led conservation initiatives. When we within the Limo Conservation Network, we are working with some organizations that have this priority to involve, the local communities. So in each activity, they involve the local communities, and it's not just about awareness or education, because we talk a lot about education, and it's really true. We have to do that, but uh, many organizations that work on local and rural areas, they involve for each activity pupil, like in nurseries, like if they want to do the fire break, for example, to protect forests from against the fire, they involve the local people, and some organizations also help the local communities to find alternative livelihoods. For example, the beekeeping. Also, there are some conservation organizations that they don't just work on conservation, but also on the income of for local communities. So there are many successes of local-led initiatives, and we really want to hear from them, because we always see in the media, in over newspaper, that the situation is really bad. Madagascar is on fire, and yeah, that's true. But let's try to listen also the successes, and there are successes from local areas, and also at the Lemur Conservation Network, we really want to share this the successes from our members, because they really do a great job on conservation, but also on local economic development. So we really want to, give them a voice to share the such of successes, because we really need to hear from them when we have at another hand, the situation is really bad throughout the over social media and over media. So yeah, there are a lot of successes of local-led conservation initiatives, and many of them are LCN members. And if we look at our website, we have a profile for each conservation, and they work in a specific area, and they really work closely with local communities. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that's it's
Mhm.
really good to hear, and I think that's the main thing is a lot of conservation stories. They can be a bit scary, and they can be a bit a bit doom and gloom and all this sort of thing sometimes, where they we look at the negatives to try and scare people to get into want to do more. But I think sometimes the inspiring good stories are just as inspirational and just as fun as just as important as well. So it's good to hear about those. And
Mhm.
yes, I will make sure and put a link to the Lemur Conservation Network, the website in the description for this episode,
Mhm.
so people can go and have a look at the stories and see what they can find and which ones really taught them and inspire them.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if there is anyone listening who is inspired and does want to do more than just kind of read the articles, more than maybe they've been inspired by your work with Baobab or the kind of local community work or anything really, what would you say to them? What would be how can people help who've listened to this and are feeling inspired?
Yeah, thank you. For me, for anyone who wants to help for, Madagascar and to help for the conservation of biodiversity in Madagascar, my great best advice would be first let's try to understand the context and we really have different perceptions. We have different cultures, and it's really important. But if we want to help, let's try to understand first the local context and try to know more about what really happens in such specific areas. And yeah, we really want to have everyone involved to save lemur from, for example, lemurs from extinction. There are such a good stories, but let's try to understand what happens first and try to listen to her what happens from that's why we need to have a voice from those who are in the local areas. And yeah, that's my would be my advice. We can help in at Lemur Conservation Network website. We have the web page, and we guide our followers on if they want to help. So there are some many things that we can do. But yeah, my advice is let's try to understand and to listen first, and then we with our perception we can really help in from our side to the country like Madagascar.
Perfect. That's really really interesting. That kind
Yeah.
of brings us right to the end of the questions in a way that's I think really inspiring and really good way to end. So thank you so much. Is there anywhere else the listeners should go if they want to learn more, or do you recommend kind of going right to the Lemur Conservation Network website? Is there anywhere else you'd point them?
Yeah, for me, yeah, for conservation, yeah, we try to gather many information about conservation in Madagascar for the our website at the Lemur Conservation Network. We have also the Facebook page, the Twitter and Instagram. So yes, through this social media, we can you can follow our page. Yeah. So anything else? I think yeah, that's yeah. I would highly recommend to to visit our website. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so
Yeah.
so much. Thank you very very much for your time today. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jack. It was a really grateful and meaningful conversation. I'm so happy to have this opportunity. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and for thank you so much for your invitation. It means
Thank
a
you very
lot
much.
to me. Yeah.
Thank you very very much. Thank you. And welcome back. Thank you so much for listening to that interview with Seheno there. I really hope you enjoyed it. It was such a pleasure to record with her, and I cannot thank her enough for her time and for, yes, just being such a great person to talk to. She gave us so many insights about plants that I didn't know, so many insights about a species, the baobab, that I have loved for my whole life. So I was very grateful for that as well, and some useful tips on how we can kind of make the world just that little bit better. So Yes, I am very, very grateful for her and for all of the advice and time and everything that she gave. And I really hope that you take something away about the kind of the importance of plant life, not just animals, because animals are cute and fluffy and whatever. Plant life is also important. So I hope you take that message away with you. And yeah, another thing I guess we can take away is, of course, the work on local conservation and encouraging and allowing for people who are from the countries which we find the most interesting, whether that be Madagascar or whether that be, I'm trying to think of other countries and my mind's gone blank, whether it be China or whether it be Australia or whether it be Namibia or Brazil, wherever the animals which you love and the plants that you love live, let the local people lead the way on conservation. Let them, they will know the place better than anyone. And yeah, I think Seheno summed that up far better than I am now. But yeah, just kind of, yeah, be more aware of the world around you and the people in those spaces. Well, anyway, before I ramble and keep you any longer, all I have to say is thank you so, so much for listening to another episode of the Land of the Lemurs series of Pangolin. We will be joined next time by someone we are all familiar with if we've been listening to the whole series. We'll be joined by Harry, Jesse, and Tiamundre from Ranamafana, if you remember them from a few episodes back. They're actually coming back because I thought we'd continue the kind of plant theme with a discussion all about a plant nursery project that they're setting up. So I really hope you look forward to that and you listen to that and you get even more of an appreciation for plants than you gained today. Um, but yes, until then, you can follow us on your podcast streaming service of choice. You can also follow us on social media Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Pangolin Podcast. And of course, you can check out all of the websites and resources we discussed today in the description for the episode. So make sure to do that as well. Well, that kind of brings me to the end of today's episode. So all that remains is for me to say a massive thank you once again to you for joining us as we explore the land of the lemurs. Thank you so much. Bye bye.